phonics and early language skills. We'd like to share with you some information about our new phonics scheme and some of the ways that we can support children to develop their early language skills. Dr. Julian Grenier led on the revision of development matters for the Department of Education, which is a document that supports the early years foundation stage framework. And he said that we need to acknowledge that language is the foundation for children's thinking and learning. That is true when they are little, and it remains true throughout their education and their adult lives. Communication and language is considered as one of the prime areas of learning within the EYFS framework and is fundamental in developing knowledge and understanding within the other strands of learning too. So we are now going to talk to you about some of the ways that you can support children's early language skills. Modelling is a great way of scaffolding children's early language development and demonstrates some of the techniques that they can use and apply themselves. Engaging in shared interactions with children is really important, and opportunities to explore language through role play, storytelling, rhymes, poems and songs will help them use language in an imaginative and creative way to express themselves. Dialogic reading is where we encourage children's engagement in reading. So this can be done by shadowing the child's interests, expanding on some of the things they've noticed, and perhaps introducing some new vocabulary, prompting them to think about specific parts of the book and use of open questions to encourage them to elaborate or make links to prior learning. So language is made up of many different strands. We need to consider which words to use, also known as vocabulary, the sounds in those words, referred to as phonology, the order we put words in and their form, known as grammar, what words and sentences mean, which we call semantics, and how we choose to express that meaning, which is pragmatic. Therefore, it's a very complex process using and understanding language. So, in our training and our Nelly training, they refer to something called communication chain. And this basically means that it's consisted of two strands of language, receptive and expressive. So receptive language skills refer to the input of information and involves listening and attending to what people say, understanding the words or sentences and processing the meaning. Whereas expressive language skills refer to the output and involves choosing words, planning sentences and combining them to create narratives while speaking clearly and fluently. So time for a quick quiz. On average, how many words does the average 4 to 5-year-old use? You might want to pause your video to write A, B or C. Okay, so obviously this question refers to expressive language, and if you put B, you would have been correct, 2,000. So now, on average, how many words does the average 4 to 5-year-old understand? So this question refers to children's receptive language. And the answer is C, 5,000. So obviously that's quite a big change from the previous question. So on average, children will understand a lot more than they will use when they're sort of age 4 to 5. So early language development is also instrumental in developing children's grasp of reading. Being able to read and developing a love of books and reading can have a hugely positive impact on your child's education, as well as bringing them lots of enjoyment. When teaching reading and reception, we will focus largely on two strands, being able to phonetically decode words and understanding the text, which is also known as comprehension. So, what is phonics? Phonics is making connections between the sounds of our spoken words, also known as phonemes, and the letters that are used to write them down, which are known as graphemes. So children are taught the full range of grapheme phoneme correspondences. So they are taught to recognise what the letter looks like and the sound that it makes. And they're also taught to hear the separate sounds within words, which we call segmenting, and blend the sounds in order to read words. So we'll just talk you through some of the terminology that we use. A phoneme, which we've briefly touched upon, is the smallest unit of sound in a word. So that might be a single letter sound, or it might be a digraph or a trigraph. And we'll come on to those in a minute. A grapheme is the way that the sounds are shown when they're written down. So the letter or group of letters representing one sound. A digraph, some of your children might come home saying they've spotted a digraph or they've learnt a new digraph. It's basically two letters that make one sound. So you can see some examples on the screen. And a trigraph, you've guessed it, is probably three letters making one sound. So those are some of the terminology that they might use. And we also, towards the end of reception, might talk to the children about a split vowel digraph. And I think, you know, a long time ago when we were at school, sometimes they were referred to as, you know, the magic E, but it's basically where two letters make one sound, but they're split by a consonant. So the children are also taught this vocabulary so that they can identify them within words. When decoding words, we sometimes encourage the children to apply sound buttons in order to distinguish the sounds into chunks in order to blend and read the word. A dot is placed under a single sound and a line underneath grouped graphemes such as digraphs and trigraphs. So oral blending is where you hear a series of spoken sounds and you merge them together in order to say what the spoken word is. So this skill is best taught before blending written words and can be done via games like Simon Says, point to your ed. So it's where you're giving the children the puzzle pieces that fit together to make the word. And if they can start to hear these, that will really be a good stepping stone for them to blend the written graphemes. So then when we come on to talking about blending, this is where we're combining the sounds, and this is usually associated with reading. Segmenting is where we separate the sounds, which is usually associated with spelling. And something that we say in reception is that we are stretching the word. So we're really listening out for the sounds they can hear. So for example, in the word shop, they would pull it apart and say the sounds sh, op, shop. It's important to remember that these are difficult skills and it will take time for children to develop the techniques involved with blending and segmenting. So be patient and be a role model for them to scaffold their learning.
So, how do we teach it at Cawston Grange Primary School? After the February half term, we're really excited to start our new systematic synthetic phonics programme, which is called Little Wandle Letters and Sounds Revised. Because we're starting the scheme halfway through the year, we are adapting this scheme slightly to suit the needs of the children at our school. So we will be streaming the phonics lessons across reception and year 1. And this means that the children will be working with trained staff in groups that are targeted to their abilities rather than whole class phonics lessons. The lessons will be 20 to 30 minutes every single day, and all children in reception in year 1 will also participate in 2 20-minute reading practice sessions every week to apply their phonic knowledge to their reading books. More information to come on that in a second. So teaching phonemes. Before children can begin to read words, they need to be able to recognise the grapheme-phoneme correspondences, or GPCs. So each GPC in reception is taught with a matching picture and mnemonic in phase 2, or catchphrase in phase 3. As they progress in reception, these recognition of the sounds will become almost immediate. They will learn to say each sound and then blend the sounds together to read the words, and then even hold sentences. The pronunciation of all of these sounds are really important. I would advise that you please familiarise yourself with the correct pronunciations, as this will really support your child in their blending. For example, if I said m-a-p and then blended those sounds, it would be m-a-p. However, if we pronounce them correctly as m-ap, then they blend seamlessly. M-ap, map. Little Wandle have got matching pictures and mnemonics for the phase 2 sounds and catchphrases for phase 3 sounds, which help children to remember them more easily. The information sheets, as I've snipped a couple of the examples on the slide, These sheets are on the Little Wandle website and also on our Cawston Grange Primary website under the Phonics section, and the videos for the correct pronunciation of the sounds are also available for you to access on here too. Now, as you all know, English is a very complicated and strange language. The same letter, digraph or trigraph can represent many different sounds. So in Year 1, the children will learn the alternative pronunciations of the sounds in their Phase 5 phonics. Little Wandle call this progression growing the alphabetical code. And so to demonstrate this, we've got a quick challenge for you. If you pause this video and have a go at writing down as many different ways of spelling the sh sound as you can. So there are 6 different ways of representing the sh sound, such as in shell, chef, special, caption, mansion and passion. So this is an example of the Growing the Code poster. This is a Little Wandle poster that every classroom from Year 1 upwards in our school will have, and it illustrates the different sounds that each grapheme can make in different words. This is built upon during their phonic lessons in Year 1 to enable children to learn to read new vocabulary within the more complicated books. So, how do children learn to spell words? They use the skill of segmenting. So we teach the children to stretch the word by saying it slowly to help them hear each sound within it. For example, top, you'd stretch it to be top, 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 being able to hear each individual sound. So we ask the children to say the word, whether that's out loud from at the beginning or when they're more confident, more towards in their heads. So they say the word, segment the sounds, count the sounds on their fingers, and then write them down. To help children recognise each individual sound, we often use sound buttons as a visual representation. Single sounds have got a dot underneath, and digraphs and trigraphs have a line under all of the letters within them. For example, pig is 3 separate sounds, single sounds, and then the word rain, a, n. The digraph has got a line underneath it to show that the A and the I work together to make the A sound, the digraph. So we've got another challenge for you. This time, pause the screen and see if you can apply the sound buttons to the words on the screen. Here you go. So don't worry if you didn't get them all right. Your children will become very quick at identifying the separate phonemes within the words as they practice their segmenting. So alongside the grapheme-phoneme correspondences being taught, we also teach children whole words that cannot be broken down easily, otherwise known as tricky words. So tricky words are words that can't be sounded out. In order for children to read simple sentences, it is necessary for them to know that some words have unusual or untaught spellings. It should be noted that when teaching these words, we always start with the sound that's already known and then focus on the tricky part. For example, in the word to, we already know that the T makes the T sound, but the O doesn't make an O sound, which the children will have learnt first. It makes an oo sound. So the O letter is the tricky part of the word, and they just have to be able to recognise them. High frequency words are very common decodable words that recur really frequently in much of the written material that young children read and that they need when they write. For example, words like can, at, if, off, him, get, back. These are words that come up really often. Throughout the year, children will be assessed in their ability to read and recognise high frequency and tricky words. To help them with their fluent reading of these, you could practice them with your children, and there are many ways that you can make this fun and interactive. For example, being word detectives and finding them within their reading books, cutting them up and hiding them all around your house for them to find and read. We've even encouraged parents to stick them up in the toilets for the children to practice when they're on the loo. Any exposure to these words are deemed helpful in terms of them grasping and remembering the words, so that they can start to identify them within sentences and books. The fundamental skills in phonics are tuning into the sounds around you, rhythm, rhyme, alliteration and oral blending. A lot of these skills are developed in nursery, but we also incorporate these skills throughout our phonics lessons and our other lessons to give your child plenty of opportunities to develop these skills further. On this slide is the Little Wandle overview of reception lessons. However, as I explained earlier, we are adapting this scheme slightly to suit the needs of the children in our school. So some children might not be working on the same sounds at the same time. However, we are still aiming to support all children to be confident in Phase 4 by the end of reception and Phase 5 by the end of Year 1. So in addition to our daily phonics lessons, some children will receive extra support lessons to help them to catch up and keep up with the phonics knowledge that they need. This is an example of the Year 1's phonics lessons from Little Wandle. Again, some children might be working on different sounds at different times depending on their secure phonic knowledge, and some might receive extra support if they need it. In the summer term of Year 1, the children will do the phonics screening check, which is the statutory assessment of their phonics knowledge. It's completed in every Year 1 class across the country, and children will read real words, decodable ones, and pseudo words, also known as alien words, where they use their phonic knowledge to sound out unfamiliar words like Vosh or Hague. So we use half-termly assessments to ensure your child is reading books that match their phonic knowledge. Now this is a really important part of teaching children to read confidently and accurately. Most children learn to read by applying their phonics knowledge to reading words and sentences, so they should be mainly practising by reading decodable books that include only the sounds and tricky words that they have learnt so far. So this is an information slide about the reading practice sessions that we do at Cawston Grange Primary School. At school, all children in reception and Year 1 will participate in reading practice sessions 2 times every week. For each class, they're on different days, so your class teacher will let you know when they are. But it's 2 sessions per week, and all children will be in small groups of 7 or 8, and each group will be taught by a trained teacher or a teaching assistant. We use the same book for both of these sessions, and day 1 is focusing on decoding, and this is when they focus on sounding out and then blending the words to read them. And day 2 is focusing on understanding what they have read. Prosody means learning about expressive reading. For example, knowing that an exclamation mark means that you read it in an excited or a loud way. The reason why we use the same book for both sessions is to develop their fluency with reading. It reduces their cognitive load, which allows them to focus on 1 or 2 particular reading skills at a time. This will improve their confidence in reading, which will develop their love of reading for pleasure too. So, reading at home. The most important thing you can do is read with your child. Reading books and chatting about them had a really positive impact a year later on children's ability to understand sentences and words, use a really wide range of vocabulary, develop listening comprehension skills. The amount of books children were exposed to by age 6 was a really positive predictor of their reading ability 2 years later. Now, I know you're all extremely busy and it's really hard to find time to read with your child. I totally get it. But please do your best to try to spend some time every day reading with your child, as it has such a big impact on their progress in language development, reading skills, and their enthusiasm for reading and learning. So, what will your child be bringing home? This is an important slide that explains what your child will be bringing home with them. They're going to have learning to read books. So these are the books that they're going to be practicing their independent reading with. So every Friday, your child is going to be allocated one e-book version of the same reading practice book that they've been learning with at school. At home, the best books to practice reading with are ones that are very closely matched to their phonic knowledge. We assess this at school, and we use the information to allocate matched books in their reading practice sessions. The Little Wandle Scheme's research shows that practicing the same book at home with their family helps children to develop confidence, pride, and fluency with their reading. Unfortunately, we can't send home the reading practice physical copies of the books, as they are needed for different groups each week at school, so instead we have invested in the Collins eBook Library. Every Friday, your child's class teacher will allocate the same book that they've been practicing with on the e-book system for you to use at home. The login information for this will be sent to you in a letter during this last week of half term, so please keep this information safe, as you will need it each time your child practices their reading with you at home. It should be accessible on computers, tablets and phones for ease of access for you, and your child should be able to read this e-book without your help, but please talk about the book and celebrate their success. And in addition to their learning to read books, we are also going to keep the physical banded books, so those are the ones with the coloured stickers on, available for your children to choose from, however often they like. Banded books are matched to the phase that the child is working on, so phase 2, phase 3, phase 5, phase 4. However, they are not 100% matched to the child's phonic knowledge. These books are therefore for shared reading, which is where they share it with a family member and you work together to read the book. And this is because there might be some words or graphemes that your child has not learnt yet, and they might need your help to read them. They will also continue to take home library books, as they have been doing so far too. The shared reader books are often more interesting and captivating than the learning to read books, and will help to instil a true love of reading for pleasure, which is what we're striving for. These books might not seem super challenging enough compared to what they used to practice reading with, but the evidence shows that children progress further by practicing with decodable books that are matched to their phonic knowledge. The children will be very familiar with the e-book by the time they're reading it with you, and this will help to develop their fluency in reading. So reading at the right level for these e-books means that your child will know all the sounds and the tricky words in their e-book. They will be able to read many of the words by silent blending in their head, and their reading will become more automatic the more they practice. They should only need to stop and sound out about 5% of the words by the time they're reading it at home, and they should be able to do this on their own. Obviously, if they need help, you're welcome to help them, but they should be fairly confident with these books. So here are just a few tips to support reading at home. If you've got any questions or anything you'd like support with, please ask your child's class teacher. We're more than happy to help you. And I would just like to say thank you for taking the time to watch and listen to this presentation. We really hope it's helped you to understand how we teach early language, reading and phonics at Cawston Grange Primary School.